want to dive into and what we're going to continue to dive into over the course of the next really few weeks with training is diving into a lot of what builds the business outside of outreach, right? Because like, as you know, and as you were just mentioning, like outreach is up and running. It's like kind of sometimes we can feel like we're sitting on our hands if we don't have proper direction of like where to go from there. So now we're kind of in the spot we're understanding that providing a lot of context towards what you guys could be doing is going to not only help the efforts of our team and getting the results necessary, but also put you guys in a position where, you know, the different strategies and tactics that we teach you outside of the outreach system is going to directly bring you revenue as well, you know?
Sure.
So a big topic that we're getting into lately is like how to build a brand that attracts high level clients. And you're pretty solid with this for sure. So I think, you know, like out of most individuals that we've worked with in the past, I think you're in a spot where like you have a strong understanding of this, but it'll be good to go over it either way and just to kind of talk about the different ideas of like content that convert, how to build a brand that really attracts those high level clients, like what type of language to use, what type of brand to build, those types of things. So, you know, like we did this with a training a couple of weeks ago, and this was in like one of our free groups that we have. And we were talking about, you know, like the honest question of like, if you messaged you, would you buy from you? Like having that type of mentality of like looking at the profile, looking at the branding, looking at the individual. Are we going to give a positive response to ourselves, you know? And
sure.
Like you're in a spot where your branding is really solid. I think there's just some like tangibles outside of that, like general content ideas that would be a really good framework for you to build on. And like, there's a couple different aspects of this side of branding that's important to kind of highlight. And like when we're speaking from an Instagram perspective, right? It's like we've got credibility, which is like our following, right? Unfortunately, on a platform like Instagram, it's super credibility heavy, like where the more of an audience we have, the more we're able to leverage that audience and get a higher frame of results. And we have like the ability to tap into like Instagram services and different ways of growing our profiles that we've used in the past. We used that used to be our digital marketing agency, was an Instagram marketing agency. So we have a lot of like experience in this. So this is something that like we can definitely help you out with if you ever want to jam on it or anything like that. But
do you mind if I actually cut in real quick while we're on the topic?
Yeah.
So I am intrigued in that because like I see that like I'm posting freaking regularly. It's like my engagement has gone way like so like really down. I don't know necessarily why, but it's like I think seeing that, you know, I want organic growth, but I also want credibility at the same time. It's like being able to have that follower count, I feel like makes it easier to create organic, you know, connections in a way. Cause I'm sitting here with, you know, like maybe 1,300 followers and, you know, I'm not seeing that people are necessarily grasping my content, I think. So I would be intrigued in this, like the services like that.
For sure. Yeah. Like, I mean, the main thing to understand here with Instagram growth and that type of shit is it's definitely true. Like we have seen significant difference in like the profiles that we run outreach on that have like a high amount of followers between like low amount of followers, to the point where we've even like considered including in like this offer, including like branding aspects of like, because we ran an agency that did both Instagram growth and PR, like getting people featured in publications. And both of those things like heavily correlate to credibility, to the point where it becomes relatively easy to convert at that point when you have that type of like those metrics and like those like cosigns from publications and stuff like that. So we've kind of dabbled with like potentially including that and like upping the price of the program and including it in the program price, different shit like that. But yeah, man, like, I mean, all in all, it's like, I kind of think about it like this. Instagram is extremely hard nowadays to grow a large audience fast. Like TikTok is a platform where we have a lot of organic exposure, where we can catch like trends and stuff like that and ride them pretty hard and get some audience. And that's like super beneficial. But with Instagram, it's like extremely hard for us to do that. Like the platform is super oversaturated. There's tons of fake users. There's tons of BS content. And like, it's hard to like cut through the BS. So like, I heavily recommend personally, like, there's a lot of people out there who don't agree with me, but like, I heavily recommend that like the credibility boost is important. And like to your point, what it creates is it's that type of kind of like mental attraction of like, oh wow, like there's a lot of people following this person, I should do it too.
Yeah.
Not so much of like, I always tell people like this when it comes to Instagram growth and credibility, it's like a lot of like getting over 10,000 followers is like your ideal, like over 10K that you have like you have the K, right? And like it sounds corny as fuck, but like the K means something online nowadays. The like getting over 10K just puts you in a position where you have that credibility behind you, and you're in a position where you can start to attract those users towards your profile afterwards. And like I think about it like this, getting to that K, like it doesn't matter who these followers are, in my opinion. Like just getting that credibility will put you in a position where when you come across, or when people who are your ideal clients come across your profile, they're viewing you as an authority instead of just like another user. With our accounts, for instance, like we were able to like take advantage of a good amount of like organic growth in the beginning of Instagram. And like we had like softwares that we used when we were running an Instagram growth company. So like we were able to build like a solid, foundation of like potential followers that like are within our niche, you could say.
Yeah,
But like a lot of our following to this point has been boosted with like promos and stuff like that to raise the authority of our accounts. And like I can tell you wholeheartedly that like literally everybody does this, like down to the Grant Cardones, down to the
crazy that like, because I mean, I there's definitely like I've seen a stigma of like, oh, don't do this, but I mean, I'm just looking at some of the people's profiles that I see, and I'm like, how? Like, it is not. There's no way you're growing at that rate. It's like, and you're putting out one post a day. So yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like, dude, me and Mike saw this all the time. Like, the people who tell you not to do this are the people that are doing this. Like, literally, it's like we've seen it time and time again that like people will say not to do it even though they're doing it because they're trying to sell you on like I can help you organically grow, and really they're using promotions,
Yeah.
and like using promotions, like what we leverage, like celebrity promotions, and like essentially they're like influencer marketing campaigns. But like we go the cheap route because we have the reality of the fact that like shout outs, or if you run like giveaways is what they're like primarily called, like whether you do it with a US based celebrity or whether you do it with an international celebrity, you're going to get dog shit followers either way. Like you're not going to get your ideal clients to follow you. So for us, we're like, hey, am I going to spend $2,500 for 20,000 followers on a US based promo? Or am I going to spend like $150 on like a Brazilian promo? Like it gets the same result,
Yeah,
it's like
totally.
the end result is like us having more credibility on the viewer side. And like, this is really beneficial for what we do because it's like, we are in the inbox, right? So like when we're sending a direct message, you've seen it with message requests that like it says their followers next to it, right?
Yeah.
So like people don't look at your engagement when they're opening a DM. They're looking at like the follower count of like, oh wow, this person has 20,000 followers. Let me check it out. So it heavily increases open rate. And like I definitely think it's something where it's one of those things where it's just like the platform has just gotten to a point where it's like the only way to win. Content's super important. Engagement is super important, but engagement can be built afterwards. And what I usually tell people is like, there's two different scenarios that we used to experience with Instagram growth. It's like you have one individual who has low amounts of followers, but really good engagement. I usually tell that type of person, like, just keep doing what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've got really good engagement. It doesn't really matter because you've got good engagement. But like, because like sometimes doing a follower boost like this can affect engagement in some cases. So I tell people like, if you have 4,000 followers, but you're getting like 100 comments on a post, like you don't want to fuck up your engagement by potentially doing something like this. If you're in a position where you're not experiencing a lot of engagement, then you might as well get the boost. It's like not going to have like huge negative impact,
Yeah, and like most of I'd probably lost a good like 200 followers when I started changing my content. It was no longer just like random pictures of my life. It was like, there's an intent behind it, and which I could care less, but it's like it's like on the other side, it's like, okay, the 1,300 followers that I have it's just from a ratio standpoint is like, 5 people liking it or 10 people liking it, it's like, how am I ever going to grow at a rate where, 10 people are liking it? It's just not big enough on an engagement scale.
For sure. Yeah, and it's like you will still be able to leverage, like, I look at it like this with Instagram, the two forms of content that they're heavily pushing out for exposure right now is reels and carousels.
Yeah.
So reels and carousels are the two types of posts that are getting the most exposure. And then videos are like third, and then photos are fourth. So it's like leveraging. What I usually recommend is like, if you're building that credibility with an over 10,000 follower page, now you've solidified yourself that when we're doing outreach, you look a little bit more credible on the front end. And then you're doing like leveraging carousels, and reels are still going to allow you to get organic exposure. But the difference is going to be when those people click on your page, they're going to see the credibility. They're not just going to see like a regular audience, like it's not bad, it's not good. It's just a regular audience compared to like the credibility standpoint, so like that'll be the difference maker with you, is like you're really good with reels. So like staying consistent with those reels will be huge, but having the credibility will help you retain those people who are watching those videos. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah. Cause it's like they're coming across my page, even though they like the reel, they're just seeing it as a random video. They're not like, oh, this is somebody who I'm going to get valuable content from on a consistent basis because they've got credibility, So I definitely see.
Dope. Yeah. And like, and another thing that you just brought up, that's a good point to hit on too, is like when we are creating reels, like something I've started to like learn on TikTok, like TikTok has taught me a lot about content. And like, it's not like I'm building this like 100,000 follower page, but I'm trying to be a little bit more niche specific. So I'm taking like the longer route to grow. But I'm noticing a lot about the platform, because what TikTok does is that, you have such a small attention span to take advantage of with TikTok, that you have to have a call to action in there. You have to like catch attention. You have to be valuable, So one of the things that you might want to start incorporating into like reels is like right at the end, putting something in there where it's like a follow for more, or like a, like for more, or like having like a call to action, telling the audience something to do with that piece of content. Maybe it's like comment your opinion below, whatever the case may be,
Yeah, I actually saw that with a reel I did, that I ended it with the mini course. Actually, it was directed at the mini course, and I looked on the engagement, and I had like 1,000 more people actually look at the video all the way through just from me putting that call to action there.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's a huge piece. So it's like when we're looking at like the profile as a whole on the front end, because it's like, think about it like this. We drop a message in the inbox, the person clicks on the message, and this is exactly what they're going to look at. They're going to look at the page, So it's like the credibility is going to lift the percentage of that message being seen, because it's going to say the follower amount next to that message request, right? Huge piece of getting seen is that, like, the credibility. Next, like having a quality avatar, which Joe's in here now too. Both of you guys have a quality like profile picture, right? Like you guys they can tell who you are, what you look like, and like they can identify you right off the bat. Then next piece becomes the like XYZ statement, and really identifying who you are and what you do, right? So one of the things you can leverage is that how Instagram works is, the name portion of your profile. You can see that mine is coach now that we're like really hitting on like a lot of the mindset and business stuff. I started to like rebrand towards that. And what that does is having mindset and business coach, having like my job title in a sense in that name portion. When somebody looks up mindset coach or business coach, my profile will actually pop up in the search bar. So it helps with like search engine purposes on Instagram to be able to identify what type of coach you are with that name portion. Especially if your username like heavily states your name already, like you might as well use that to your advantage,
Yeah, I don't need to Austin Gabor twice.
Yeah, exactly. So then under that name, now we're talking about branding and having like a clear message as to what you do, right? And I really took this as I recently like redid my whole branding, because I want to start heavily coaching on a lot of this material. And I noticed that there was more that I could do to catch on the front end. So I did this, and like cutting to the chase with the XYZ statement, but also, right, like how can we create like a positive experience when somebody comes across our page, right? How can we create some sort of feeling that when they come across our page and that they read our bio, they either laugh, they smile, or they know exactly what we do. It doesn't have to be like this crazy experience, but it's something that catches their eye. So you can see, like with mine, I went the laughing route. So my goal is that when somebody reads my bio, they have a quick chuckle, like they have a positive experience out of that. So mine says, I help men and women remove money blocks and sell online coaching programs like toilet paper during the pandemic. Right. So like just kind of hitting off that I could like create that kind of like that laugh on the front end. That's like, wow, this guy's, like whatever people think, but it's something that I'm identifying who I am and what I do, but I'm also creating like an experience around that statement, like something that's going to make somebody remember me. Like they're going to remember me as the guy who fucking sells programs like the toilet paper during the pandemic, like who the fuck, who else has that,
Right. That definitely sticks in your mind.
Yeah. So like thinking about that, like how can we stand out compared to a lot of people in our industry with this branding piece will be huge. Like using your XYZ statement, but also kind of thinking, how can I tweak this to have somebody remember me when they come across this page? And then also having a call to action, right? Because like I think about an Instagram page like a landing page, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're looking at this page and it's a landing page. We've got, the headline, we've got the bio, we've got, an opportunity to show our testimonials, and then we've got an opportunity to prove why somebody should reach back out to us or why somebody should positive response to us. Yeah. So like with this on the front end, you can see that like I'm taking advantage of my name with the mindset and business coach. That's kind of like my headline. And then, the XYZ statement is like my, like kind of like beef to that, like the bio. And then DM me info for details is the call to action, so that when somebody comes across my page and they see me and they're like, oh, I sell an online coaching program. Oh, this is pretty funny. They check out a couple of my videos. They're like, oh, this is cool. Then they check out my testimonials highlight. They're like, oh, he's gotten a lot of results for clients. This is cool. And now they can be like, oh, DM me info for details. I'll just DM them info, So like we're giving people one pathway to introduce themselves into our ecosystem, which is going to allow them to make an easy decision as to like, okay, I should probably just direct message this person, and then the eye-catching content, right? And like utilizing the highlights to show results and maybe different videos of you talking about different topics. Those are going to be huge to kind of edify people when they come across the page. And then the eye-catching content is what's going to kind of convince them to take that call to action, Yeah,
definitely. I like that.
Yeah. Do either of you guys have questions, Austin or Joe, off of this?
I would say the only thing for me is so like you've got your website. I guess for me, I mean, just looking at my let me actually just look at my thing real quick.
I think I actually have it up here if you want to take a look.
Yeah, I think like I feel like I've kind of got the things that you're talking about. The credibility aspect is probably the one that's not working in my favor. And then, maybe I can do to adjust the bio. I kind of like the bio, but it might maybe need to be more direct. I'm not really too sure. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I think it's solid all around, honestly. Like I think there's a clear call to action with like driving the traffic towards the link tree type of like homepage. And then having the bio. I would say that there's probably a way, if you do some like more thinking on this, and I don't have something off the top of my head, but there probably is a way to frame an XYZ statement to really stand out. I don't have like the language off the top of my head, but I think there probably is something that could be put into there. But I think overall, like you've got the structure that we're explaining here. The credibility is really the only missing piece in that, you know?
Yeah, I would agree. I definitely, because like I when you said, oh, would you like, would you tap on your page? And I'm looking at my page, I'm like, yeah, I probably would, but if I see 1,300 followers, I'm kind of like, whatever, you know. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
for sure. No, yeah, and to that point, it's like each of the pieces do matter, and that's kind of the main thing with this is like Instagram's just one of those platforms where it does matter. Like Facebook doesn't matter as much. It's like, nobody really cares how many friends you have, like it's like that's why Facebook PRs have been pretty high with all the clients in automated coaching engine, is because we don't really have these friction points that we have on Instagram.
yeah, for sure. I'm even thinking about TikTok, and TikTok is like, the first things you see are followers, and I think it's likes or something like that. So it's
Yeah,
even that factor.
100%. 100%. Joe, do you have any questions based off of that? I know you popped in a few minutes after.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. What's going on, man?
What's up, brother? How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I did pop in a little late. Couple questions, I would say. I don't know if you want to pull up my profile and take a look. So the things that I'm thinking, I guess threefold. So one would be my bio. I kind of have it more as like almost like my job titles, like transformational NLP coach, mental health and human optimization speaker. I don't have it as much as like the XYZ statement. Would love to hear your thoughts. Love to hear your thoughts on that. And then, yeah, let's start there.
Yeah. I'm thinking like based off of what I'm looking at, I'm almost thinking you can, because this is like what I also think about with Instagram bios is like we have such a low amount of characters to be able to work with that like we want to kind of play a puzzle piece game with like the different aspects, So it's like with what you have here, it's like professional speaker and coach. Like potentially you could either put NLP coach or you could put transformational coach there and take out that first line, so that it kind of encompasses that first line in the actual title. And then having that XYZ statement would be huge, because I think like if you look at this from an outside perspective of like your ideal client coming across your page, not everybody knows exactly what NLP is, right? So like it can kind of create that curiosity. Like Mike has done a good job. Mike P has done a good job of like doing that in the past with a lot of what he does. Is like a lot of his branding is kind of based around the fact that like if you looked at it on the front end, you wouldn't really know exactly what he does, which kind of raises the curiosity. But I think like when it comes to leveraging like a brand for the coaching side with what we're doing here, I think it is important for on the front end people to know what you do. So I think maybe like doing something where you have professional speaker and transformational coach would be a really good like name title. And then you could really identify and call out your target audience with that XYZ statement of like, I help X do Y without Z. And then just having a clear call to action, whether it's like DM, transform for more info, or, those different types of things that can have like a higher call to action when people come on the front end,
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. And I do want to talk a little bit about that and X, Y, and Z statement and all that stuff, and integrating the NLP after getting back from the session this weekend, but we'll get to that. Yeah, I guess the next two questions I would have would be my like I don't know what they're, my highlights, and I created like just those blue things on Canva. I feel like they don't look that great. Is there any way like someone in your team could potentially create some stuff based on the branding that we've done within the app, or what would you recommend? I mean, do we even need like thumbnail shots there, or what's kind of the best way to brand those in a way that's attractive?
I think it is solid to have it just like overall branded in a way. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to us helping out with that at all. With getting those ironed out, because those are quick designs that we can get for you. So I'll look into that. It looks like you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that should be quick for us to be able to build something around that. Because that's another thing, is like branding from a visual aspect is important too. So being able to have those like kind of eye-popping like designs could be huge.
Totally. And I might even go in there right now and take some of those out, because I'm looking at them now and I feel like I haven't updated those. I might take some of those out. I feel like they're a little outdated, and bring it down to like 4 or 5. Yeah, even if you guys could just like create a template and then I could do them off of there, however that works, that'd be dope. And then I guess I missed this part. I guess it would be like, talk to me about like the content piece, and I guess what would you say about my page right now, like in terms of content and yeah, just maybe what I missed on that front.
Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of what we've talked about so far, and I'll get into content for sure with you. But we were kind of talking about this framework of like Instagram as a whole, and the fact that like the credibility piece is super important in driving results in Instagram specifically. Like you're somebody too, where like you're crushing on Facebook, getting Instagram. Like that's what we're seeing across the board, is like Instagram is kind of the platform where most people are falling through the cracks with the results. And it's primarily because of like this stuff here with the branding and consistent content and stuff like that. You and Austin do a pretty good job with staying consistent on Instagram, but more so of like that credibility aspect is a huge piece that I was talking to Austin about too. And we can get into that and just talk about, like, we literally ran a business around credibility on Instagram. So I'm happy to dive into that with you. But yeah, with content, like overall, you've got really solid like video content. Like you got a like high quality video content, leveraging testimonials, different stuff like that is huge. I would say that potentially like the video template could be something to like to maybe tweak. Are you doing that in Canva?
Yeah, that template. Yes, I
Got you. Okay, cool. Yeah,
and I've honestly been thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Sorry to cut you off, but I've honestly been thinking about like just like getting the video content and not even necessarily putting it into that template, because I feel like it's kind of getting repetitive, where it's like just videos of me in that template like over and over and over again.
Yeah, no, I think that's like a solid idea to think about, is like just going straight with the video could be huge. And how you could differentiate is use like different what's it called? It's different covers, you know? Like maybe you have a different photo cover, or you have a different like part of the video, or you add like a title to it to have it be a cover, that type of deal. So that you could like kind of like say it was just the video here, and then you had like a big title here about what it was about, you know? Something like that could be huge. But yeah, I mean, overall, like you've got really solid video content. I think the one thing to think about with video too, and we might want to think about this all around, is like the big piece of content is like stuff like this, right? Like you can even see like just from this one piece of content that you have up here with like this kind of like longer form caption. You can see that like it brought some solid like feedback, you know? And like one thing that I've noticed is that captions are a huge piece alongside of, you know, like our videos are like, how are we creating engaging captions that are like telling a story with the video alongside the video in order to really take somebody through the journey. Like even this one has like a comment here. It's a little bit longer winded with the caption. Like you're telling more of a story, as opposed to this one that's a quick caption and there's no comments here. So you can see that like engagement's a little bit higher when you go a little bit deeper on the caption. Yeah. Okay. So that's definitely something to think about. And like what I think about with captions is like, I don't always go call to action with captions, but I'm always building like a storyline with my captions. So like this is a post that I posted like a few hours ago, and like like I'm using this to kind of just like I'm always like playing off of the photo or whatever I have. So like this is like obviously there's a path here, there's mountains, yada yada. It's like I chose to talk about like many of us decided to choose the path of least resistance, right? So and this is kind of drawn out to be storyline based and have like a little bit more of a structure to it, but there's no hard call to action here. It's just more so of like quality content, of just like storytelling. So you can see that like sometimes I'll have content. I think this one I had a call to action. Yeah. So sometimes I'll have like a call to action at the bottom of a photo of telling like the same type of thing, long drawn out caption with a CTA at the end. But I won't always do it. I'll do it on like certain things where I'm just like confident in the caption and I know that it can drive some solid results. So you want to kind of like think about those different elements of how to do that. Let me see here. But yeah, I mean, all in all, like I would say the main things that could potentially be holding back from like results with this is kind of just ironing out that bio to have a little bit more clarity. So potentially adding transformational to your name, then doing an XYZ statement, and then having a strong call to action. That call to action could even potentially drive people to that link tree. So it could even kind of like say something like a bunch of useful shit or like a bunch of useful stuff for you here, like those types of things, to be able to drive people towards that. And then the credibility aspect, like being able to just kind of boost that could potentially be something that's a good idea for you. That on the backside,
Yeah. And what's that? Is that when you're talking credibility, you're talking followers, correct?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and like yeah, and the main thing with that, like to understand is like I was kind of going over this with Austin too. It's like we ran an Instagram marketing agency for a long time, and that's like how we built our initial marketing agency to get to the point where we're at today. And like we built it off of providing follower growth. And the big thing to understand is that like with Instagram, like it's incredibly fucking hard to build an organic audience nowadays. Like there's barely any reach, there's barely anything to work with. And it's important for us to understand that like the number means something. And like even though it's dumb and even though it's drawn out, like the number does draw the attention that we need. And even if it's something where it's like, even for a second, somebody thinks like, oh, maybe I want to check this out because this person has over 10K or whatever the case may be, it drives a higher percentage of us being seen, And that's the most important thing is like, it's like having that credibility just allows us, even in the message requests, we have the follower account next to our name. So it drives that opportunity for us to be able to get somebody to click on our message and actually see what we're saying, So I was telling Joe that, I was telling Austin that like we ran a marketing agency where a lot of what me and Mike built with our brands, like we built a solid foundation organically from being early in Instagram, being early in a lot of this shit, like having softwares that built like organic audiences. But once those softwares like went to the wayside, we started using celebrity promotions to grow our pages. And like there's two different routes you can go with celebrity promotions. One of them is the US based promotion route, and one of them is the international based promotion route. So the US based promotions, you're going to pay like $2,500 for 20,000 followers. It's really not worth it considering that you're going to get dog shit followers no matter what you do, Whereas the international based, they're a lot cheaper and you're still going to get the credibility that you need. So me and Mike often went with the international to continue to build our page and have that higher level of credibility for when we're sending out our messages. And it's proved to work really well for us. So like, that's something where like understanding the fact that like these are not your ideal clients, these are just to create the leverage and the credibility so that in the future when you come across ideal clients, they see you as an authority, so it almost just builds the foundation for you to be able to look like an authority to your ideal client, but it doesn't bring you your ideal client. you know?
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. Fucking super interesting stuff.
I can't hear you, Jeff. I think it's breaking up.
You hear me now?
Yeah, you're getting it.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, man, super interesting stuff. I don't think I have any additional questions now on this. Yeah, this is cool, man. This is super valuable. Thank you.
Cool. Sounds good. We'll drop down. So the other thing we want to jam on with this is diving into content structure, right? So diving into like, how do we create effective content? How do we stay consistent? What are the different platforms that we're using? That type of deal. And really coming at this from a strategic level. So one of the biggest ways that you guys can build consistent following at a high level is to actually utilize the podcasts to be able to get consistent content. So one of the biggest things me and Mike have done is launch our podcast. We film it on video every time that we record our podcast, and you guys have both been on it. We cut that up into reels and different pieces of content for us to leverage. Even if you're on coaching calls, like record those coaching calls, because you never know when you're going to say something that's really valuable that you can cut up into a piece of content on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever the case may be. So like always be recording anytime you're in a Zoom setting, because, you know, like all my content, like all my video content is on Zoom for the most part. Like it honestly, like quality, like video quality only matters so much nowadays. Like people just want value. And like you can see that with TikTok, right? Like TikTok's a platform where the quality of the content is super shitty, but you can still get 1 million views having zero lighting, having like, you could be in like the fucking in your garage and still get 1 million views on TikTok, you know?
I see some of the worst video quality ever, and it's got like, 47,000 likes on it. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah. Like TikTok's proving that like it really doesn't matter, you know, like it's people just want to see what they want to see. They don't care. And like what we want to look at and from a content perspective is like we want to look at these new emerging platforms like TikTok, because TikTok is what's going to dictate the future of content. You know what I mean? TikTok is the emerging platform. So like understand that every emerging platform is what dictates the content moving forward. So like Instagram, for instance, when Instagram first came out and it had the photos with like just the photos, like that was groundbreaking for Facebook, because Facebook used to just be statuses. Like it used to just be like Twitter pretty much, you know? And then they started incorporating photos, and then they bought Instagram, and like all this shit happened, right? So like understanding that like the new emerging platform will always dictate the way that content is moving forward. Now you can share your reels on Facebook. Like everybody is moving towards short form TikTok style content, even YouTube with YouTube shorts. So that is like the huge hack to having consistent content, is like understand that you guys are valuable people that have valuable information. And if you just like sent a couple like LinkedIn messages or emails or like Instagram DMs, whatever the case may be, to a couple podcast hosts, like podcast people are looking to have guests on, and like they just don't know who to reach out to, you know? So if you just like reach out to them and you're like, yo, dude, I saw your podcast, like really support you. Would love to hop on and have a conversation. I think it would be really valuable for both of us to have the content type of thing. I've done that many times in the past and been able to get on a lot of shows just by being like, yo, like, let's hop on a podcast sometime, you know? So doing something like that, if you don't have your own podcast, could be a good way for you to hop on some different podcasts. What I do is like, when I hop on those podcasts, I have them send me the recording, and I send it over to our content editor. You guys can go on Fiverr, like have somebody cut it up, all that shit, right? So that's the biggest thing, is like, if you're not in that type of setting of like on podcasts and all that different stuff, which I think is like really where you guys want to focus your time at this point, is like, how do I get more exposure, right? Like, how do I get more eyeballs on me and what I do? And like, that's going to be through like podcasts, collaborations, like hopping on lives with people that are in your target audience of like, you know, hopping on lives with other coaches, right? Like maybe Austin and Joe, you guys do a live together, like different shit like that, like create like these types of different opportunities for you to get in front of different eyes is going to be huge for you, you know? So
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Austin.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I like the idea of like going long form content and then just repurposing it into a lot of different pieces of short form content because it doesn't take up so much time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's literally the only way I can post. Like, I don't make time to create content for the most part because I'm focused on, you know, like other areas. So like us having our podcast and hopping on other podcasts is literally the only way I get content at this point, you know, unless I take like a selfie while I'm on a hike.
Mike, can you talk? You mentioned something in there that is something that's crossed my mind, not only for the podcast, but just for content in general. So do you guys, I know you guys have like some internal design kind of based VAs. Is that like what you guys would do? Like you just be like, yo, and I don't know, I'm blanking on his or her name, but would you send that to someone internally? Do you think it's like pretty important, or like when you, as you grow to team, to kind of have someone internally to handle all design needs? And it's also like, as well, like with like cutting up a podcast, it's just like, you know, you show them how to do the process once or twice, and then they just got to kind of mine for the content. Or how does that process work for you in terms of like, yo, I just recorded a 50-minute podcast. You probably know in your mind that you had some bombs in there that you want specifically cut up. You know, you don't necessarily as a CEO want to take the time to go in and sit through it and be like, yeah, here, and timestamp it all. So what does that process sort of look like for you guys when it comes to cutting up content and basically preparing it to then be posted out?
Yeah, for sure. Very, very good question. Yeah, so like with Ray, right? Like Ray is our content creator. He handles all of it. So like as soon as we finish a Coach's Corner podcast, like we simply add it to Ray's tasks and we don't even think about it after that. So the reason being is because we have really shown Ray like what it is we want, what type of content we want, what we're expecting, like who we are, right? Like Ray has a very strong understanding of who we are as individuals. So as a result, he knows what to look for. He knows what like the value bombs are. He knows like what we want to put today on social media, right? So like
the eye for it now.
yeah, so it takes some time to like train them on that, but like once they get to that point, like we don't even think about it, you know. Like nowadays, we just tell Ray like cut it up, and like he'll give us a folder of like 10 different reels that he cut up from the podcast, and then he'll just say like, let me know which ones you want me to edit, you know. But yeah, that's the huge part is like just getting to the point where you're, you know, like I think as you're building a company, it's very important to have somebody internally who does it. You know, like when in the beginning, like using Fiverr is fine. And like with Fiverr, I recommend like just test a couple different people. And if you have a good experience with somebody, then just keep hiring that one person because they'll start to know who you are and what you want, you know?
Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, man, totally. And talk to me a little bit as well. Again, I know this is getting more into the business side of things, and I don't want to derail the conversation in any way, but is like someone like Ray, is he like would he be considered, is he a full-time employee? Is he someone that like is kind of works more on like a contract basis where it's like, yo, we got some reels, like here's some work for you? Or how does that sort of structure work internally? Because again, I mean, just thinking about scale and that stuff, and I that is one of the things, right? Because I've had multiple instances where I need a video cut it up, or you know, I basically had to, you know, cut up videos on my own. It's like it's a fucking pain in the ass. So how does that work, like structure wise?
Yeah, so Ray is full time with us, so he's 40 hours a week with us, and really like I see it as 100% necessary to have somebody in that type of position. I think that like you can start out with somebody on part time, like, and be able to get some good content structure and some good people to like to outsource all that. So you could start somebody on like 20 hours a week and potentially like fill them up if you're creating consistent content. But like Ray does everything for us. Ray cuts up our YouTubes. He creates like any sort of graphics that we need for funnels, anything that we need for ads. He creates anything that we need for Reels, TikTok, YouTube, like Twitter, fucking anything. Like he does it all, So like it's really valuable to have somebody in that type of position when you're scaling, because it takes content out of your mind. Like you're just the creator, you're not the doer at that point.
Cool, man. Yeah, that's huge. And then I guess my question would be on that, since he is full-time, like, is there any point where it's like, okay, it's 40 hours a week. Is there any point where it's like, ah, shit, we don't have any like design needs right now? Or do you feel like you guys are doing, between the podcast and everything that you're doing, like he's got plenty of work to kind of keep him busy week over week?
Yeah, he's got plenty of work with us. I think there has been times in the past where like he potentially like didn't really know what to do if there wasn't stuff on his board, but we've done a pretty good job of like kind of steering him in the right direction as to like, hey, look, like if we don't have specific tasks for you, then like just dive into like all of our previous content and figure out what you can create out of it, So
Gotcha.
like
Get creative.
So like he'll do all types of shit. Like Ray just like we'll find times where he's created like whole carousel posts for us that we like never even told him to make. Like he's been like trained to kind of find like what we want and create something around it. So like, so yeah, I think I mean, to that point, it's like I think that's where it's valuable to have somebody that creates content on your team, is the fact that like as soon as you hire somebody like that, you like have to force yourself into creating a lot of content. It's like,
right.
All right, I'm paying them, so I might as well create content, and that will put you in a position where all of a sudden you have a YouTube page, you have a clip for LinkedIn, you have them cutting, reels for Instagram, TikToks, like, because that's the thing you want to think about is like when you record one form of video, just like Austin said, that's what we do is like long form content cut into short form. So like we're recording one podcast that might be a 15-minute podcast, but then I'm giving that to Ray, and Ray's creating like 4 reels for me, 4 reels for Mike, 4 TikToks. He's creating like 1 clip for Instagram. He's creating 1 for Facebook, like all these different things, because, like a lot of what we're going to be talking about when we dive deeper into these topics, like ongoing, is the fact that like content is different on every platform, So like Ray understands that, and understands that like on Instagram, like right now, the hottest form of content is reels. So he's cutting up reels for us. On Facebook, like a lot of what's really good is like teaser style videos. So he's doing a lot of that for us, So it's definitely important to have somebody on that as you start to scale, just because it takes it out of your hands. And like as you continue to grow, like you definitely don't want to be spending time doing that. Like even where you're at now, like I would just hire somebody on Fiverr for a lot of that shit until you get somebody that you can pay like on a part-time to full-time basis.
Yeah, I've been slowly starting to do that with different tasks. Is just like, outsourcing it, a couple hours for, let's say, $50 or $100 on just miscellaneous tasks. And in your mind of like vetting out, like, look, I know I'm only giving you a couple hours now. However, like there is a long-term vision here. It's just a matter of, when that is and when you're doing certain tasks at a, part-time or full-time rate. So cool, man. And I don't want to dig. Yeah, no, I don't want to hijack and dig too much in, because I could keep going on like team structure and different roles and stuff, but that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, no, we can definitely, like, we're going to be doing, I was telling Austin in the beginning, like all of our calls are going to be training based moving forward. Like we're going to have some Q&A stuff and some different like update us on where you're at type of stuff, but a lot of it is going to be training based. So I'd be happy to jam on some like team management and team structure style training on another day. We're gonna have a call a day moving forward, so a lot of opportunity to jam.
Hell yeah! I do have some questions, Mike, when the time is right, around just getting back from that NLP training, and was actually talking with Mike P a little bit around kind of just pivoting a little bit, like target audience and that stuff. But again, when the time's right for that, I want to make sure we're getting through everything recruiting wise.
Perfect. Yeah, no, let's definitely jam on that. I think for for tonight, for the most part, I think we've kind of cleared the air on a majority of the content stuff. And Joe, like, shoot me a message and we can jam on that, what you were just mentioning. But outside of what we've covered today and the questions that you guys just asked, do you have any other questions based off of what we covered tonight?
I'm pretty good to go. My main question would actually be along the credibility aspect of like the shout outs that you guys know or do. I would be curious about those.
Dope. Perfect. Yeah, I'll shoot you a message after this just to kind of fill you in on like what those look like and like
Okay.
what we have for resources. Like we've got a guy that can definitely plug them for relatively low cost. So I'll shoot you over a message just to let you know what's up.
Dope. That sounds great. Other than that,
Perfect.
I'm good to go.
Perfect, man. Joe, anything else before we jump?
No, man, I'm good. This is cool. I did see your post in there, so I'm going to try to make it to as many of these as possible. The training styles, I will shoot you a message. I'd love to hop on for like 15 to 30 minutes. Again, I know I've pivoted a couple times here, but this training was super impactful, and it's got me really reinvigorated for coaching and getting clients, and I'm doing some free sessions with people. And so I just kind of want full clarity on the best way to pitch it and who to, kind of pivot the target audience to. But this shit's super impactful, man. And I know you were thinking about going to that training and it didn't line up, but I just want to, dude, I got a ton of value. It's really fucking cool. And like NLP is, it's the difference that makes the difference. So I'm super fucking excited.
Yeah, hell yeah, bro. I'm stoked to hear that. Yeah, I'll shoot you over a message so we can get a time on the books and jam on that as well.
Sweet. Thank you, man. Yeah, other than that, I appreciate you guys. This was great. And hope everyone has a great night.
Of course. Yeah, appreciate you guys. I'll shoot you both a message and enjoy the night. Hit us up if you need anything.
For sure. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys.
Peace out, guys.
Peace.